What is the responsibility of a son? What is that of a soldier? Even more so, that of a commander? These questions by themselves are complicated enough. Imagine then if you're a soldier and a commander and also the son of the leader of your people, and during a time that the fate of your homeland is resting on your shoulders, and beyond that you are an unwanted son, a disappointing son, and despite your very best efforts, despite all of the blood that you have spilled, you can never walk away from the shadow of a brother who adores you and the expectations of a father who doesn't want you. In this video, we'll explore the story of Faramir, one of Gondor's greatest sons, Tolkien's intentions with him, and what we can learn from the character that J.R.R. Tolkien has described as being closest to him. Let us start in the beginning. Faramir was born as the son of Denethor and Findulis during the rule of his grandfather, the Steward Ecthelion II of Gondor. He was the second child of his parents' marriage and was 5 years younger than his brother Boromir. While his very early childhood was not particularly eventful, everything changed when his beloved mother Findulis passed away, only a few years after his birth and following a period of weakness and ill health. While his father had always held Boromir closest to his heart and had a clear favorite, it was following the loss of his Findulis that Denethor became a grimmer, darker man. In his grief, he grew harsher towards young Faramir. He was stricter and unfair, and perhaps even saw the child as being responsible for the death of his wife, as it was following the birth that her health steadily declined. Under these incredibly difficult circumstances, and mourning the loss of their mother, the two brothers grew closer, and the older Boromir did everything in his power to protect his beloved brother from the wrath of their father. They became inseparable, and Boromir was always there for the young Faramir, as the father that the young boy never truly had, even though he was only older by 5 years. Though Boromir was the clearly favored by the Stewart warrior and the heir to Gondor's rule, both siblings were formidable warriors, deeply respected by their men. Faramir was loved and admired much among the people and the men he led, but despite his feats in battle or his strength of arms or the nobility and renown of his blood, it was not in war that he found solace. Though the glory of battle and the yearning for war was commonly shared amongst the mightiest in the ranks of the race of men, Faramir was an exception. Though a great warrior, he was a warrior by responsibility and not by choice. Throughout his life, Faramir was a man of letters and of lore. He was deeply learned in the history of his people and of the world, and he adored music and the arts, and he was described as having a deeply gentle nature and a kind heart. Even though he dealt in death, he was not a hard man, simply a man who had endured great hardships but never let them change who he was. These scholarly pursuits by themselves were enough to displease his father the Steward, and Faramir's close relationship with Gandalf or Mithrandir further belittled him in the eyes of Denethor, who distrusted the wizard. Nonetheless, Faramir learned much from Gandalf about the lore of his people and of ancient Númenor, and the two developed a strong bond. When Faramir was 35 years old, he, alongside his brother, commanded the defense of Osgiliath, the former capital of Gondor, against the forces of Sauron in what was the very first battle of the War of the Ring in the year 3018 of the Third Age. The defense was grueling, and the forces of the Sons of Gondor were nearly annihilated from the never-ending onslaught of Mordor. Faramir and Boromir, however, stood strong. They valiantly defended the very last bridge in Osgiliath that permitted passage from east to west, until it was destroyed, and the two brothers managed to survive by swimming away once their mission was complete. They were some of the very few Gondorians to survive the slaughter. Right before the battle, Faramir received visions, prophetic dreams, presumably from Eri Luvatar, from God himself, which spoke of Narsil, the sword of Elendil that was broken in the fight against the Dark Lord, and of Isildur's Bane, as well as of a place called Imladris. Boromir would later receive a vision as well, and the two brothers approached their father for information and advice regarding their visions. Denethor told them that Imladris spoke of Rivendell, the dwelling place of the Lord Elrond, and, though Faramir wanted to be the one to make the journey to the land of the elves, it was Boromir that was sent, and would be the one to eventually join the Fellowship of the Ring. This would be the very last time that Faramir would see his beloved brother alive. Only a few months later, the Great Horn of Gondor, that sacred heirloom of the House of Húrin, would be heard across the realm, and only 3 days later, Faramir would see the dead body of his brother, of his protector, floating down the Great Anduin, broken and pierced, sword fractured. The departure of Boromir broke both Denethor and Faramir, but instead of the event bringing them closer together, it left them more alienated than ever before. The father, distraught, was filled with disappointment, and his inability to cope with the death of his eldest son blinded him to the fact that he still retained another, as able and capable and worthy as all of the sons of Gondor. And Faramir, his brother, was gone, and his gentle personality and non-conflicting nature simply made him take every abuse Denethor aimed at him, without question, as if it was his responsibility. Faramir was soon thereafter sent by Denethor to lead the Rangers of Ithilien in their fight against the forces of Mordor and the evil men of the south. During this time, he encountered Frodo, Sam and Gollum, and he eventually learned of the details surrounding the fate of his brother, as well as what Isildur's bane actually was. What followed is one of the most impactful moments throughout the entirety of The Lord of the Rings. Faramir had all of the power and authority to claim the One Ring to rule them all. This was the test that his beloved and equally mighty brother had faced. This was the test that Boromir had failed. Boromir had every good intention in the world, and he genuinely believed he could have used the ring for good and to defeat Sauron. This is the nature of the ring. It twists your goodness and turns it to evil, and it operates entirely on pride. The pride of believing you can overcome it, that you are a mighty man who cannot fall, that you know better. Faramir, however, had lived his entire life as number 2. He had achieved greatness in the shadow without yearning for the spotlight. He overcame the trap of pride, and thus the ring had no hold over his soul. Faramir, through his humility, understood that he was no match for the ring, and it was not his place to take it. But fear no more, I would not take this thing if it lay by the highway, not where Minas Tirith falling in ruin, and I alone could save her, so using the weapon of the Dark Lord for her good and my glory. No, I do not wish for such triumphs, Frodo, son of Drogo. Thus Faramir, son of Denethor, becomes one of the very few characters in the history of Middle-earth to deny the ring. Though he knew his father wanted it, and he knew the consequences of not bringing it to him, he did what he felt was right in his heart. And this is what permitted Frodo and the rest to move forward on their journey to destroy the ring in the fires it was forged. Not to mention, of course, the fact that Faramir listened to Frodo and spared Gollum after he was discovered in the Forbidden Pool, which was yet another factor that directly led to the ring's destruction following Frodo's inability to throw it into the fire. Faramir bid the hobbits farewell and started his journey home to report to his father. On the way, he and his men encountered the Ringwraiths, and with the intervention of Gandalf, they managed to return to the White City, where father and son are reunited. Upon learning of what had transpired with Frodo and the ring, Denethor is angered and disappointed, and he makes his feelings clear to his son, a son that has wanted nothing but to please his lord and father. On Faramir letting the ring go, Denethor says, "Ever your desire is to appear lordly and generous as a king of old, but in desperate hours, gentleness may be repaid with death." "So be it," said Faramir. "So be it," cried Denethor, "but not with your death only, Lord Faramir, with the death also of your father, and of all your people, whom it is your part to protect now that Boromir is gone." "Do you wish then," said Faramir, "that our places had been exchanged?" "Yes, I wish that indeed," said Denethor. In this passage, we see one of the major overarching themes of The Lord of the Rings, the constant battle between moral victory and physical defeat. What happens when you have to sacrifice your principles, claiming the One Ring for example, in order to achieve the physical victory of saving the lives of your people and the fate of your home? What is there to do? What can you do in this situation? The answer, within the context of The Lord of the Rings, is to choose morality, because it is through your morality that physical victory will be achieved as well. According to Tolkien himself, The Lord of the Rings is a Christian work, in which God, or Eri Ilúvatar, exists. Ilúvatar is the one guiding the story of the world. He is the one who has seen everything, and he is the one who will ensure that evil is defeated for good. All that one can do in Faramir's position is stay true to his faith that God will not abandon them, that God knows and cares, and Faramir is thus able to take the leap, maintain his integrity, deny the ring, and put his trust in Eru. And this is what ultimately happened, as it was by Eru's hand that the ring fell. And make no mistake, this is not something that one does out of self-interest. Faramir knows nothing for certain, he simply does what he feels in his heart to be the right thing, and that is all anyone can do in his position. Denethor has lost his faith, and in the battle between morality and physical victory, he chooses the latter. He chooses the latter because he sees everything crumbling around him. His people dying, everything being lost. Where is God at a time like this? Why isn't Eru helping us in our time of need? The answer is, he is. You're just not aware of it. The Gandalf you hate so much, Lord Denethor, is an extension of God himself. It is he that sent him, and maintaining one's faith at a time like this, with doom at your doorstep, is the most difficult thing in the world, and Tolkien recognizes this. The difference between men at this stage nonetheless remains. Who is able to maintain his principles, and who is not? Moving back to Faramir, if a father wishing for the death of his own son was not enough, Denethor then tells Faramir that Osgiliath must be reinforced, as it is there that the enemy's full force is expected to be preparing their attack for Minas Tirith, the very place that he and Boromir had made their last stand against the forces of darkness. And after every abuse throughout his entire life, and after just being told that his own father would have preferred he had died instead of his beloved brother, the one who took his place in going to Rivendell, Faramir yet again does not reject Denethor. He takes the abuse and he follows his lord and father's command. He embarks on what is essentially a suicide mission, and father and son say their goodbyes. I do not oppose your will, sire. Since you are robbed of Boromir, I will go and do what I can in his stead, if you command it. I do so, said Denethor. Then farewell, said Faramir, but if I should return, think better of me. That depends on the manner of your return. Gandalf it was that last spoke to Faramir ere he rode east. Do not throw your life away rashly or in bitterness, he said. You will be needed here for other things than war. Your father loves you, Faramir, and will remember it ere the end. Farewell. So now the Lord Faramir had gone forth again, and had taken with him such strength of men as were willing to go, or could be spared. Faramir, the captain of the White Tower, did all that he could, and the glory of his feats and the mastery of his strengths of arms became legend. The mission he was tasked to perform, however, remained impossible, and Faramir was injured in his glory, and his body fell upon the fields in front of the White City, where he was found by the knights of the Prince Imrahil and saved. Gandalf was proven right in the end. Denethor, his mind and soul consumed by the destruction of the city of his forefathers, and seeing the end of his realm and his people, and thinking the life of his remaining son was over, lost himself. Once a proud and glorious lord of Gondor, he was now a man broken completely. In his loss, he finally understood his love for Faramir. As he thought his son was gone, the last vestige of his house, his heir, Denethor realized his wrongdoing. He realized his mistakes and his mistreatment of his little boy. It broke him, utterly and completely. He gives up. He sets himself and his son upon the pyre and prepares to burn them both like the heathen kings of old before the days of Númenor, in what is the culmination of his loss of faith. Faramir did everything for his father, and once his father realized this, Denethor experienced the full extent of the blow, of losing both of his boys. With the intervention of Gandalf, Faramir is saved from the fire. His father, however, is not. Denethor broke the white rod symbolizing the authority of his office and burned it, and then he set himself upon the fire and too perished, leaving his city and his people to their fates. Faramir, with the death of his father, became the new steward of Gondor, but remained incapacitated until the end of the siege, remaining in the Houses of Healing, where he is healed by Aragorn and where he meets the love of his life. Then, Eowyn of Rohan, I say to you that you are beautiful. In the valleys of our hills there are flowers fair and bright, and maidens fairer still. But neither flower nor lady have I seen till now in Gondor so lovely and so sorrowful. It may be that only a few days are left ere the darkness falls upon our world, and when it comes I hope to face it steadily. But it would ease my heart if, while the sun yet shines, I could see you still, for you and I have both passed under the wings of the shadow, and the same hand drew us back. In Eowyn, Faramir not only finds love, but also his other half, in a very literal way. As I have covered before, Faramir helps show Eowyn her true purpose beyond the path of the warrior and into the path of the healer, and in turn, Eowyn shows Faramir the humble dedication, appreciation, and love that he has deserved his entire life but not received. Together, mighty warriors both, they are forced to wait in the Houses of Healing and not participate in the Battle of the Black Gate. They are forced to wait patiently while their loved ones are sacrificing their lives at the very battle that will decide the world, and they find solace in each other. And in this agony, and amongst such pain and death, these two characters heal and complete each other, both having grown up without a mother, and both having a father figure that has blocked them from the path that they felt they wanted to travel. As steward, Faramir recognized the kingship of Aragorn and declared his faith in him, and because of this, the people of Gondor accepted the Ranger as their king, as King Elessar. Faramir willingly gave up his authority in favor of what was right, in favor of the rightful leader of his people, and Aragorn makes him the Prince of Ithilien, and the two, King and Stewart, work together to restore Gondor to its former glory. Faramir and Eowyn settle down and have a son together, and many decades of faithful and humble service later, the Stewart would die at the age of 120, being succeeded by his son, Elboron. What are we to make of such a character? I think the things that truly characterize Faramir are duty, humility, and mercy. It is these three things that drive every single action that he makes, in combination with his faith. These three things are often conflicting, and as such, a hierarchy must be made, a hierarchy of values, in which duty to something greater than even Gondor is established. At least that is my interpretation. After all, in letter 180, Tolkien has stated that Faramir, out of all of his characters, was the one closest to him. In both men, we see an unwavering commitment to their respective homelands, and its history and its people and its culture, and yet their love for their countries does not overcome their responsibility to their own souls and faith. Both of them are soldiers, and both of them are scholars. Tolkien, in his own humility, states in the letter he lacks all that Faramir possesses: courage. Though I have to disagree with the professor there, courage is indeed one of the most important things that Faramir ultimately teaches us. It takes courage to do what is right. It takes courage to ride away, not knowing if you will ever come back. It takes courage to retain your values, and it takes courage to love, even though the world is collapsing around you. I do not love the bright sword for its sharpness, nor the arrow for its swiftness, nor the warrior for his glory. I love only that which they defend. Thank you very much for watching.